I recently took a look back at some photos that I took in San Francisco a while back. I decided to re-edit them and talk about them with you guys today. For some of these photos, I had my GoPro recording footage, which ultimately made it into a photo walk, which I will link. For some of these, I did not have GoPro footage. So with that said, I will add it where I can to give you a feel for the moments when I took the photos. If you have any questions about any of the stuff that I talk about today, please feel free to comment. Let's begin. Here's a good old-fashioned street photo taken on the streets of San Francisco with an older fellow in a suit and a very serious hat. It says, "I'm here to do business, but I'm also here to do business." And a young blurry fellow in the foreground. He wasn't actually blurry in real life. It's an effect of the lens. He has some headphones and a rebellious hairstyle. I enjoy the juxtaposition between the two, and this is a great example of how you can make relationships between two people or objects with layering. And the longer focal length here allowed me to place one on top of the other, with the focus being on the older man, establishing him as the subject and making the younger guy a secondary subject. Here's one I captured of a fellow leaning on a wall. He looks a bit sad, and I hope today is a better day for him. But here we have very strong body language and a strong expression for us to connect with. I love how I was able to black out one side of the frame, which cleans up the shot while still also implying that there's more to the scene. There's also a sense of distance and like we're peeking in on this guy's day as if you spotted him across the way. This happens to me often, and sometimes their expressions can be quite striking. I give you a symbolic hug, sir. I've always enjoyed this photo. To me, it's a composition that is very pleasant. It's very symmetrical. You have straight lines, repeating shapes. Here we have a group of 3 glass panels. We have arrows. We have this yellow wave on the top of the bus stop that reduces in amplitude from left to right. And then, of course, we have our classy subject here. I appreciate her outfit. Her hat is great. Her expression and body language is great. It's just perfect that she chose to stand dead center of that left panel while looking into the frame. Nobody else around, great light on her face. Fantastic. Woo. I used a 50mm here, but it was on my A6400 body, which has a crop sensor, so this made it be around 75mm ultimately. The focal length made everything nicely compressed and polished looking. I think it worked well for this photo, and I found that in the right circumstances, across the road street shots can be really a great way to build out an intentional composition from a distance. So here's one I grabbed of these police officers taking a guy down into a train station. I try to capture the dynamics of a given city when I'm there. And San Francisco is certainly a rougher city. I was presented with this scene, and I wanted to capture it to give a feel of that dynamic in a way that is frozen in time. And this isn't an insane photo, it's more mundane, but the mundane quality of these officers casually going down the stairs into the darkness with a hooded person is striking to me. And it's kind of poetic. A person being taken down into the darkness out of the light with his head covered. I also think I use photography to process the world. And it's not always clear to me what I'm processing or how I'm processing it when I'm experiencing and capturing and ultimately looking back on these moments. But there's something about being able to look back on these times in this way. Photos can create such a strong emotional resonance. Here's another striking photo. This was a very quick capture where we locked eyes, so to speak. Few things are as powerful as a gaze in a photo. It creates such a deep, immediate connection, and if you're wondering, she didn't track me down after this. This look was actually such a split-second capture that it's not like she held this gaze and watched me for a block or something. She actually ended up walking right past me. Although that reminds me of another moment in New York City where I took a photo of an older lady, and after, she watched me like a hawk. That woman looked up at me and then gave me a proper double take. You don't tend to see proper double takes much. Normally it's they'll look at you and then they just lock on with you. She's still watching me. She's staring through my soul. One thing to note here is how her stare immediately separates her from every other person in this busy frame. And it also helps that she's centered. She is the subject. Here's another one I grabbed of a snazzy looking fellow with a beard and an interesting brown and black outfit. Boy, do these San Franciscans know how to pick out a hat. But I just thought he was an eclectic fellow to be captured. I like how this shot actually feels like a movie. That 75mm-ish focal length really came in handy here, and the 16:9 crop accentuates that. This was a street performer I came across with a beautiful voice. I don't photograph a lot of street performers, but I thought she was so talented and clearly passionate that I wanted to capture her expression. I love how her eyes are closed. She's in the moment, in the midst of a busy city around her. Great dramatic light. The background is in shadow, making for strong separation. We love. Now we're cruising. We got a couple left. Almost there. Let's kick it into double gear, guys. Coffee. Now we're on a beach known as Baker Beach, which has a great view of the Golden Gate Bridge. Here we are pointing at a bayside cliff top neighborhood. Fun fact, I looked up the estimated price of one of the not massive houses pointing towards the ocean, and it was approximately $20 million. But don't worry, if that's out of your budget, there was an $8 million house a couple houses down. So there's something for everyone, really. Anyway, I love the atmosphere and lighting. The photo is actually quite washed out, and it was a bit difficult to bring out color here. Nice layering. I enjoy the addition of the ridge in the foreground, depth, a nice establishing shot. In this one, I'm pointing at a guy who is leaning on a skimboard. He's looking out at the water, waiting for the right conditions to shred some gnar. The patient will be rewarded with gnar. It's great philosophy for street photography, actually. Great light on the guy, beautiful ocean, beautiful mountains. In this one, he's shredding said gnar. We have a beautiful scene, beautiful colors and light, and a very interesting, mysterious structure in the distance. Perhaps that's where they took all the people from Alcatraz.
The worst thing about prison was the Dementors.
And then there is this banger. We have our friend running with his board towards the water. He's stopped in midair, full stride. There's ocean foam to create a strong contrast between him and the background. And then in the background, we have the iconic Brooklyn Bridge. Golden Gate Bridge, which contrasts nicely against the blue scene. What a beautiful structure. I wish I could bring it to all my backgrounds. Although on the city streets, that may cause some damage, I suppose. Talk about not being light on your feet. Lugging around the Golden Gate Bridge on a chain. Whoa. I think this is a great example of the value of capturing somebody who is doing something that they're good at and that they enjoy. It can really make a photo more exciting, especially when it involves moving their body in expressive ways. Excellent light in the scene and on his face. In different circumstances, the light could have been hitting him from behind, which may have worked, but it would have been different. The reflections on the ground are nice, and I love that you can see the spot where his foot just left and a bit of mud that's being kicked up. Also, the focal length here created a very natural amount of compression so that everything had a balanced amount of prominence, and it feels quite polished. Definitely one of my favorite shots from San Francisco. Here's another sort of landscape shot in the same direction. I like the layering with the beach in the foreground, the water and the foam, and then the bridge in the background. I think the setup gives a real sense of scale and distance. This is a scene that is easier to photograph in one sense, but it also requires compositional thoughtfulness to photograph it in a compelling way, to capture some of the essence of what it looks and feels like to be there. When I'm editing a sequence of photos of a scene, I'm paying attention to the positions of moving things in the scene. In this case, that was the water washing up on the beach. So I find what I feel like are the best positions, I mark those, and ultimately I pick winners. This is a winner. I like where the foam is here. I also really like the color and texture of the sand. We're likely seeing some grain mixed in there as well. One of the reasons why the Golden Gate Bridge is such a great subject is because it's symmetrical. Symmetry. It allows you to put each tower on either side of the frame to pleasing effect. Yeah. And finally, I grabbed this shot of a sailboat. We have some interesting rocks in the foreground, a wave crashing. Once again, this is an example of moving things in a scene being captured in various positions and me curating them in post. Then we have a sailboat in the background with a pocket of blue water around it, which contrasts beautifully against the rest of the scene, drawing the eye to the sailboat. The dark rocks behind it and the fact that it's a white boat also helps. I think this is a great example of how you can use various elements to create a subframe around a distant subject to draw the eye to it. But hey, friends, family, and coworkers, that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. It was nice to look back on these photos and break them apart with you today. All of these photos were edited using my Lightroom preset collection, and you can buy that link. Please feel free to like and subscribe if you like what I'm up to around here. I would greatly appreciate that. Check me out on the socials. I tend to be on Threads a lot these days. You can find me there. Here's a video somewhere where I talk about some recent photos that I took with a 50mm. And here's a video somewhere else where the San Francisco photo walk from where I took the photos that I showed you today. Okay, I love you guys. God bless.